Coming to you live from the vault. It's Rob Has a Podcast, and now here's the guy who just came back from his annual checkup with Dr. Alan Connor. It is not Rob Cesternino. Hello, everyone. Please do not adjust your dials. I am indeed not Rob Cesternino. I am Mike Bloom. If you might not know me, I am one of the co-hosts in the Rob Has a Planet atmosphere in general. I am filling in for Rob Cesternino, who is away in Las Vegas, speaking a new media expo, and hopefully, fingers crossed, bringing home a couple of podcast awards for Rob Has a Podcast. But as Big Brother is always watching, we are always watching, so our coverage continues. And I am joined by two of our more regular correspondents here tonight. Two of our many rotating panel of live feed correspondents. We'll go from left to right here on my screen. We'll start with the one and only Brent Wolgamott. Brent, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Rob, you look more dashing than ever. I just want to say that.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Brent. Thank you very much. And we also joined by Taryn Armstrong. Taryn, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great, great. So we are here to talk about this past Sunday and Monday's episodes of Big Brother Canada, and we left Big Brother this last episode in a surprising cliffhanger, which is not something that we usually see on Western Big Brother. We are left in the lurch as to whether Bruno is using the double veto power, which was this week's Twisto's twist. But before I get into that, just setting the show up a little bit. Of course, we are live here on Rob Has a Podcast. We have the chat room open on robhasawebsite.com for anyone who's in there. You can also send us questions and comments periodically throughout the course of the podcast. Scott St. Pierre is ever diligently monitoring the Twitter feed. If you use the hashtag RHAP, you can tweet us a question. And you can also go to our YouTube page, robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. There will be a question section. We'll answer questions about the show, questions about the live feeds. I want to get into some questions considering that we're almost halfway through the game at this point, which is pretty ridiculous, all things considered. But let's start, I guess, from the end almost here, and let's talk about this cliffhanger. Obviously, not a cliffhanger to you guys that have watched the live feed, since you obviously have known about this for the past few days. But I want to get an opinion from you guys. Brent, what did you feel about the ending of this? Did you like how Bruno was interrupted almost mid-coitus in the veto meeting to go into the vault? Or did you think it'd be better reserved for something he should have been told about beforehand?
Yeah, this is my problem with the twist. This twist and with a few of the other twists that they've had on Big Brother Canada this season. I don't mind twists. I like them. But the producers generally want the twists to affect the game. They want them to upend things. They want them to create excitement. But what happens when you wait till literally the last minute to spring something on somebody about a twist? They're always going to go with the safest route because they haven't had any time to talk with any of their friends or any of the people in their alliance about, if I do this, will you guys back me up? So I just want to say that it's almost predictable what's going to happen at this point because Bruno hasn't had a chance to talk with anyone about the possibility, oh, wait, if I can bring down both nominees, then I can replace both of them and maybe do something that I thought about earlier in the week. And I think that ultimately leads to not a great outcome if you're Big Brother Canada on the whole about twists if you want them to be used. I just think it's not a good idea to spring it on them at the last minute. Give them time to discuss it. I just want to say one quick thing. This is the same thing that happened with Kevin during the instant eviction. If he had had time to discuss things with people, the outcome might have been different. But because they sprung it on him at right at the beginning, didn't give him any time to think about it, he went with the safest options. And that's what's going to happen if you don't give these people any time to think. Okay, I'll shut up.
Now, Taryn, do you think that the chance of this twist succeeding was affected by the fact that Bruno, who was the head of household, won the veto? Do you think if it was Sarah or John or even someone like Brittany or Kevin who won it, there might be a different result using the double power veto? Or do you think there's a pretty big through line throughout of whether someone would use it or not?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would have made a huge difference if, one of the nominees had won. I think Sarah or Johnny both would have used both of the vetoes and taken both of them off the block, and Bruno would have been put on the spot and would have had to put up two, random people, which would have been a great drama, I'm sure, from the show's perspective.
Now, not to get too much into the live feeds, was the veto ceremony on Bruno's birthday?
Oh boy, Taryn.
I,
Taryn, why don't you
I
tell him?
don't think so.
It's right around there. Yeah.
Because
I think it might
from
have
the
been
way
the
the
day
show is
after.
edited, this looks like the worst birthday present ever. And when they said Bruno go up to the HOH room, I thought for a second that the Big Brother Canada Big Brother is kind of just twisted enough to put in the envelope like, oh, here's a card from your kids, by the way, now you have to use this double veto. Considering that we're going to talk about shot colors here, I think Big Brother has started to push the limits of how much it can literally and mentally torture their contestants.
Yeah, like his son writes down, "Hey, by the way, you have a double V."
Or just cuts to his son on the video screen having to read like he's a hostage taken, some sort of message. But luckily that didn't happen. But Bruno was taken to the vault, and I gotta love, we haven't heard much from Godfrey these past couple episodes, but I do love Godfrey's kind of ominous thing that apparently whenever you go into the vault, it's never a good thing. Brent, do you think that the vault is going to be associated with like penalties or bad twists from now on, or do you think there's going to be like prizes in there?
Well, the contestants don't like it when they don't know what's going to happen. Of course, we as the viewers and the producers love it when they don't know what's going to happen. So the players, I can't imagine, are ever going to like it whenever the vault comes into play because, it's come into play with the Risha and Pilar thing, the fact that they thought they were going to get to vote, but then it turned out that Canada got to vote, and now and then Kevin had to go in and do his instant eviction nominations before he could talk to anybody, and now this. I can't imagine that anybody's going to really like it. They may put a prize-esque thing in there sometime, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah, it seems like maybe the vault will become, specifically in the jury game, something like a literal larger version of Pandora's box, where they'll lock them in the vault and then they'll open up a safety deposit box. By the way, Taryn, how much of that budget of Big Brother's budget do you think was spent on crafting like hundreds of safety deposit boxes? Only to use maybe, I don't know, 15 over the course of this season. Do you think that was a short sight on production's part?
I wonder if most of them are fake. They probably just have specific ones that they go to.
Yeah, I guess
change the numbers exactly.
I guess that's true. They might be purely cosmetic. But let's hit the rewind button here. I don't want to bury the lead too much. Let's go back to the beginning of Sunday's episode because we do have a lot to talk about. As we talked about how this Monday show ended with a cliffhanger, and the HOH competition kind of ended with a cliffhanger as well. And this was the Through the Ringer competition where it was basically sort of endurance, sort of physical to get all the dirty laundry done. Taryn, how does this compare to competitions that you might see in Big Brother, like when they have to walk back and forth on a slidey platform to fill up a giant canister? Do you like those simple competitions more, or do you like something more complicated like this?
I personally like the going back and forth one. That's always one of my favorites, watching in the US version, and in the previous Canada ones. Because we get to watch it on the feeds, and it's easy to see the progress. This one, it felt a little too complicated. Like I never got a good sense of who was in the lead, except for them telling me who was in the lead in the DR.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Brent, do you think that the whole finding the clean clothes challenge, which Zach won, do you feel like that whole idea was lost when Zach decided that he didn't want to win? Would you call that a failed advantage on behalf of OxyClean?
Yeah, I don't think it really did anything for this competition because Big Brother Canada didn't make clear to the contestants that they could or couldn't help each other. This is my problem with this competition. On the live feeds, the live feeders eventually thought, and the contestants were talking about the fact that Bruno may be stripped of his HOH because he was helped in the competition by other people. And I feel like this is a problem that Big Brother Canada has, that it's sort of a characteristic it's taken on from Big Brother US, in that the producers sort of enforce the rules when they want to. And I guarantee you, if this had been the first season, I feel like they would have taken this HOH away from him because he was helped by other people. I felt like they would have come on and said, you're not allowed to help, you have to earn this on your own. But they didn't do that this time, and I don't like that they're sort of willy-nilly about it,
Yeah, so I actually want to, that's a great segue because I want to talk about that as well, because I did hear rumors about how people were complaining that Godfrey was helping Bruno, and we saw it on the show too. I would compare it almost, and a listener actually asked me about this before we recorded, kind of comparing it, I don't want to make too many comparisons to Survivor, but in terms of like very loosey-goosey rules, it's very similar to when people are doing individual puzzles on Survivor, and people argue the merits of cheating on and looking at the person's puzzle next to you about whether they should do it because it's not in the rules or not. And Jeff Probst has gone on to say that it's totally fine, it's part of the competition, et cetera, et cetera. But I have to agree with you, Brent. It leaves a weird taste in my mouth, and it leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth, specifically when I think one of the things people enjoy about Big Brother is how much of an individual game it is. Unlike Survivor, we're not on tribes to begin with, and then we merge into an individual game. It's individual to begin with. So to have people kind of have to team up on each other, specifically when 2 HOHs ago we kind of had that eliminator competition, which is totally made for alliances to get rid of the stragglers. I don't know, Taryn, what is your opinion about this? Do you think it's a big deal that Godfrey was helping Bruno, or do you think it was kind of no big thing?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the puzzle looking in Survivor either. It doesn't seem very fair, and they're not specific enough about the rules. And I feel like it's the same sort of thing here, like you said. I don't think it's the biggest deal that Godfrey was the only one or the first one at least to figure out that he could help Bruno. But from now on, they should really specify. You're allowed to help someone in this challenge, or you're not allowed to.
Mm-hmm. Brent, what are the merits of coming up with competitions in which they literally coat the competition in soap? Because I always feel like we see people injure each other or injure themselves constantly with the slipping and sliding and absolutely biffing it. And we saw Sarah really eat it a few times in this challenge. I mean, obviously it makes for good TV, and we all like good TV. I wish I had a soundboard tonight, but unfortunately I don't. But are you completely into the Schadenfreude aspect of it, or do you feel bad for Sarah when she has to slide into this extremely hard surface?
Well, no, and to answer your question, no, I don't feel bad for them at all. They're on Big Brother. They've got a chance at a lot of money. They've got a chance to be on TV and have a lot of fun doing things that none of us will ever get a chance to do. I think, ultimately, Mike, this is a TV show. It has to look good visually on TV. I think that the massive soap suds and the outrageous scenery and props that are part of the game really add to the look of the show, especially on Big Brother Canada. So no, I don't care that they were having problems with it.
All right. Well, it'll only be when someone loses a limb that will feel bad for a Big Brother contestant, and even then we'll say, you shouldn't stick your hand in the props life competition. Exactly. Go ahead.
I love watching the contestants get beat up. I love the super physical challenges. I don't know.
Well, this is a general. If I could title Sunday's episode, I would call it "Sarah Gets Beat Up," because between the challenge and the fact that the entire, and I will say I wasn't the biggest fan. I can understand Sarah's position, and we'll get to Sarah in a little bit. I can understand her position in this week about how she's kind of pissy about the fact that her game has gone from the top to the bottom. But I mean, what they were showing her on Sunday was not very fun, considering that it seemed to me almost every single scene was her complaining about the position she was in. I don't know, Brent, do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, she knows. I mean, she's a fan of Big Brother. She knows that this is how things go. When you're up one week, you're down next week. She said that on TV. It's really true in Big Brother and in life, for the most part. I think that she was a little whiny about it. I felt like they really did her no favors by showing all of her whiny parts about it, though.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff she did keep for the diary room, or when she was in, privately to herself. Obviously the one big public tantrum was when she broke down in front of everybody, and they're like, no, Sarah, it's okay, Sarah. But I feel like she acted pretty normal, like we all did. She feels like she's fighting against the world right now. That's the thing. She knows that her alliance is worth nothing. She knows that the other side of the house probably wants her out if Johnny wins the veto, and she feels like that she's like, it's like last year in Big Brother US when it was like, the House was voting and, let's do what the House wants. She's fighting against that, and now she's paying the consequences for that.
So let's go talk a little bit about Big Brother theory here. Taryn, it seems like Brent brought up, in both Big Brother 16 specifically and this season seems to be very much about, especially in this first few weeks, just do what the rest of the house wants. Don't make any waves, because the people that make waves get booted early. Do you think that's the new Big Brother strategy, or do you just find it a trend in the past couple of seasons?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's necessarily very new. I think the first few votes in Big Brother have historically always been pretty big blowouts. Because if you're the sole person, or if it's just a couple of you who go against the grain and try to make a big move or a big play and take out someone or keep someone that everyone else wants out, then you're going to be the target next week. And Rob says it best when he says, you just got to go to sleep for the first half of the game. That includes blending in with the crowd and not sticking out.
Yeah, I will say, and I feel like it's been brought up on this podcast before, that maybe there's a double-edged sword in casting a lot of super fans in this season, because they know that the right strategy is, as you said, Taryn, to go to sleep for half of the game. And as a result, you have, on the show we see, Kevin and Jordan make all these underhanded moves and talk about it in the diary room, but I can assume from looking at it on the live feeds, they're really not doing much. Or if they're doing anything, they're doing very subtle things that really don't register, as if you compare it to, something that Devin might do, or Andrew Gordon from Big Brother Canada 2 might do, or even someone like Greg might have done. I want to move on, and I want to talk a little bit about Hexagon. Brent, was this the first time Hexagon was mentioned on the show?
I believe so, mainly because they named off the 6 people who are in it, and I feel like they don't do that if they've already, said these are the 6 people who are in it. Sarah is right, though, in that she knows that it's a sham. It's only there to protect people in case Sarah or Johnny won HOH, which they didn't. And everybody in the Alliance, sans Sarah and Johnny, knew what was going to happen once Bruno won HOH.
So this is an interesting editing style, and we're probably going to talk specifically in this show section a little bit about production, because production of Big Brother mystifies me. It's such a weird, ubiquitous concept. Taryn, on the U.S. version, I feel like they like to show the alliances form first, whether they know the significance or not. We see a lot of these like week 1, week 2 alliances form that end up completely falling apart. I'm thinking of, what was it, the Regulators in season 13? They got eliminated the first 4 weeks, probably one of the worst alliances ever. Do you like the Big Brother Canada editing choice, where it seems like something like the Chop Shop or Hexagon they mention it after the fact and just kind of do a cut to, instead of forming it in the moment and then showing the moments afterwards?
That's usually the better way to go. I know, they kind of have to play a guessing game in the beginning. When it starts up, because they don't know which alliances are going to hold true. I remember El Cuatro from season 16, the all girls alliance that didn't even last a night. It makes sense to bring it up after it stands at least 1 week of holding up, because these alliances come and go so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, and all of them are using copyrighted names, right? I'm glad that. Which do you like? We didn't get your opinion on this, Brent. Which do you like better, Hexagon or Purple Cobras with the TM sign after it?
I have to say I like. Oh gosh, I don't know. I like Hexagon mainly because. Well, no, that goes against everything that Rob always says, because if it's Hexagon, then there's 6 people in the alliance, and then that probably doesn't work. So I have to go with Purple Cobras.
Yeah. So let's jump here and let's talk a little bit about our have-not competition, which, by the way, I feel like this is both in the first time, the long times in both Big Brother US and Big Brother Canada since we've seen a have-not competition, right? I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I feel like maybe due to Battle of the Block, we didn't see many have-not competitions in Big Brother 16, right?
Oh boy.
No, I don't think we did.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I can't co-sign that totally. I can't remember. It's been so long. Once it's over, Mike, it's out of my head.
Well, we're re-engaging your memory here. It's
all right. Thank you.
It's time to play Game of Bones, which the contestants are as dire wolves to get food, and this is a bit of a sadistic competition. But actually, it's clear that the producers are listening to this podcast. Big Brother is always watching the Big Brother podcast as well, because as I remember, the last time Rob Has a Podcast congregated to talk about Big Brother Canada, Rob Cesternino mentioned how he'd like the house guests to have shock collars on. Granted, those were to kind of quiet them down for misusing their mics, but they've sort of eased into the plan a little bit. And so I'd like to get an opinion from you guys. Brent, if you were in the house and you were put on a team of 3 and they ask for one person to volunteer, whether it's to be blindfolded or to do anything, do you volunteer or do you say, oh no, person next to me, you take this one?
Hell no, you don't. I mean, unless you're like Jordan and you want to experience everything, you know, I still can't get over the both of them taking that punishment after the HOH competition when it could have just been one or the other. But unless you're like Jordan and you just want to experience everything, I would say here, you go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm. So Taryn, we have we showed them picking teams, which is actually it's rare when we see a have-not competition. It's even rarer when we see teams being chosen for a have-not competition. But we get the teams of Zach, Godfrey, and Kevin versus Brittany, Pilar, and Willow versus Sarah, Johnny, and Jordan. So looking at the 3 teams on the couch, Taryn, which one stuck out to you as a guaranteed loser?
You know, I initially thought the Brittany, Willow, and the other one I can't remember. Pilar, yeah. I initially thought that they might have some trouble, but I also knew when Sarah volunteered, I knew that the other team would have a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I'll admit that I think initially I was fearful of the Sarah, Johnny, Jordan team just because I didn't know how physical the competition would be, and those are probably not the 3 most physical competitors, and you have that again compared to Zach, Godfrey, and Kevin, who are probably 3 of the most physical people on there. But as it turned out, the competition was only really physical for one person, and this was our classic blindfold challenge here. Can I get just a general sense from you guys? How creepy were the costumes in this competition? I'm not the only one that was creeped out by those googly eyes on the dog, right?
I wasn't as creeped out by them. I was more creeped out by Willow's reaction to being electrocuted by the fence in the competition. I mean, I was dying at Johnny. Was it Johnny and Kevin? It was or Johnny and Jordan. It was Johnny and Jordan who were in the diary room reenacting Willow. Yes. What is she doing? She's wasting so much time. It's not a real electrocution. It's the sound of an electrocution. I don't think they were really being zapped, or if they were, it was more just like a vibrating thing that sort of felt like that, right?
I'm sure
not really zapping them.
I think they were zapping them. I think they talked about how it was like getting pinched as hard as you can pinch someone.
Yeah, Sarah was describing. So I think they got probably like little zaps here. Like if you go to the carnival and you play that game where you have to hold onto the metal joysticks and take as much electricity as you can. I'm assuming it's something like that. But I have to agree. I might honestly say that Willow's reaction to being shocked might be one of the funniest moments of the season I've seen thus far. Do you agree, Taryn?
It was so good. I was laughing so much.
Yeah, it was pretty. So between Willow getting flustered by everything and Peely not being able to tell right from left, or at least her right from Willow's right, I think this was one of those. Brent, would you compare this to the wine challenge last Big Brother Canada, when Paul just completely botched it for his team in terms of like complete hot messes and challenges?
Well, they're both hot messes. Paul and Peely, they're just, I mean, oh gosh, I feel like Peely's going to be around for so long. I mean, I feel like she's like the Victoria of this season. I mean, why are you going to, as Rob says, when is anybody calling her number? I'm annoyed that she's there.
I mean, I'll say that, but also give the caveat that let's remember we live in a world where Matt Hoffman used his diamond power of veto on Kathy. So if that happens, anything can happen in Big Brother. So the team of Brittany, Pilar, and Willow loses. Taryn, did you enjoy Bruno's costume for the have-not competition?
I mean, it was pretty funny, I guess.
Someone on Twitter told me he looked like Sacha Baron Cohen character.
Yeah, actually, he did a little bit.
Yeah, he very much resembled it. I mean, this Big Brother's. You forget so much how much Big Brother's all about the costumes. I feel like Big Brother Canada has a pretty high budget for costumes specifically. I mean, you had, Willow dressed as the big ball of yarn. We get so many different. We got costumes for everyone going on later on. So, between all the vaults they painted and all the costumes they're giving these people, I feel like Twistos is giving them a lot of money here. So after the competition, they get. This is one of those very rare food competitions where you bring back what the house gets to eat in terms of food items instead of just general, this team gets to eat for the week. And one of the items is chicken feet. Have either of you guys ever had chicken feet? Brent, I know you're from the South.
Yeah, but I also have taste. No, I've never had chicken feet in my life. I'm actually one of the pickiest eaters on the planet, so I'm a terrible person to ask. I've never had chicken feet, and I probably live at Burger King and McDonald's for the most part. Yeah.
Taryn, how do you think Peter Brown would have reacted to the idea of having to only eat chicken feet for the week? Does that count in Peter Brown's diet?
Well, it's not salad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's part of it. It's not chicken fingers. It's chicken feet. I don't know where that falls into his continuum of food that he's allowed to eat.
Well, I get it, but I follow Peter Brown a little bit though.
So this episode, I'd say, in terms of strategy, the Sunday episode specifically, doesn't have too much weight to it. And you guys can disagree here, but I feel like we got a lot of, Sarah and Johnny are pretty much doomed. We get a little bit of Kevin kind of throwing Johnny under the bus. We'll see a lot more of it in the Monday episode, but it seems like they were able to save some room here for some of these more character scenes, like Bobby getting his chest waxed. Brent, what did you think about? Compare this to the 40-year-old virgin. Funnier or less funny watching Bobby get his chest waxed by Peely?
Less funny because you're talking to someone who has had his chest waxed. I had it done about I want to say 8 years ago, and that was before I decided to get it all just zapped off through laser hair removal because I hate body hair. So I did have my chest waxed one time down in Miami, and it hurt like a you-know-what. So I totally have sympathy for Bobby on this one. That the first one didn't really feel like it hurt or felt like it hurt very well, and then the second one was like, wow, where was that from?
Yeah, that seems to be the exact same mental trail that Bobby took in terms of he was fine with the first one, but then the second one was extremely painful. Taryn, any experience with chest waxing?
No.
He's too young. He's too young.
Taryn's remaining blissfully unaware here. And on top of this Bobby segment, we also get our first instance, I believe, again on the show of our Kevin and Pilar pairing. Is there an official internet portmanteau for them? What is it? Is it Peelin, Kevlar? What's the common title here?
It has to be Kevlar. There's no other choice on the board. I mean, that's it. It's perfect.
Yeah. Absolutely. And plus, they could have Kevlar as a sponsor now on the show.
Yes. Bring it on.
Now, Taryn, we see, this sort of showman sequence here with Ashley and Zach and Pilar and Kevin. Again, not to go too much into live feed spoilers, but is the amount that they're dedicating to the showmans on the show, does that correspond to the live feeds? Are they really that magnanimous of a pairing on the live feeds, or does it seem like they were just putting it on the show to provide drama as to whether the ladies will leave the men?
Sorry, I missed some of that. You were cutting out a little.
Oh, I was just saying. Do you think are Kevlar and Zashley, are they as big in the house as they're shown on TV, or do you think they were built up just so they have that one segment where Ashley and Pilar talk about, well, maybe we shouldn't trust the men? I'll throw the question to Brent while we're working through technical. It's all right. Well, I'll throw the question to Brent while we're working through technical difficulties. Brent, do you have a theory about this?
Well, no, I think they're underselling it a little bit. Sarah, in particular, and this is nothing going into spoilers or anything. She's mad that she feels like she should have gone on The Bachelor and not Big Brother Canada. The pairs are real, and the house knows they're real. There's talk amongst some people about a possible couples alliance. They don't know if it's real or not. So I think the show is actually underselling it a little bit. It's not just Kevin and Pilar, canoodling in the bed. It's legit that she's going to align with him, and they're aligned with Zach and Ashley, and they're all working together.
So there's a double date alliance going on?
Well, there's, I don't know if this is, I don't think this was revealed in the show, but it's not really a spoiler. It's the diaper alliance between the two couples in Jordan, and between that and obviously Pentagon, or Hexagon rather, it's going to be the couples are in a lot of alliances, and obviously Zach and Ashley and Jordan are in the Chop Shop alliance as well. That's still it's still working, if not in name only. So I feel like the couples are legit.
All right. So, Taryn, we find out this episode that, I think you guys theorized on the show that after Greg left, the chop shop is over. But from what it seems, at least through confessionals, the chop shop is still together. Do you find that's true, or do you think they formed a new iteration, a la what the Detonators became after Devin left in Big Brother 16?
Well, I don't want to get it too much into the feeds, but they're definitely a new kind of iteration. Bruno is very close with Bobby, and he's also got Godfrey. Mm-hmm. And the girls and Zach are kind of not as close as they were before. There's not a lot of meetings anymore. It's mostly the trio of Bruno, Godfrey, and Bobby.
Okay, so there's that own. They're not the Bermuda Triangle. They're the, I don't know, Brolition or something like that. But so it's mainly the three of them. It seems like with Zach, Ashley, and Willow as kind of hanger-ons. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right. Willow's a bit closer to them than Zach and Ashley are, but yeah, that's pretty much how it is.
Cool. So we get to the nominations, and understandably, it is Johnny and Sarah nominated. And I mean, we talk about how the Sunday show should be called Brittany Gets Beat Up. The Monday show should definitely be called Johnny Gets Beat Up, because Johnny just took the sympathy edit right from Sarah in this episode. Once Bruno has that first confessional saying, "My target is Johnny," you can tell that Johnny is getting a lot of the hang dog edit this episode. Brent, did that make you sympathize with Johnny a little bit, or did you feel like the show was kind of a little over the top in the way they were personifying Johnny's story?
I gave him a little bit of sympathy. Whatever sympathy I had for him was probably lost the minute he started to keep referring to Kevin as his Kevy Wevy. I'm sorry, it annoys me when a gay man goes on a reality television show and talks like a 12-year-old. Who is this person?
I actually want to talk about that a little bit, because I want to talk for a second about, what I don't want to generalize Johnny too much as just
go ahead
on Big Brother, but how do you think he falls on the spectrum there of the way gay contestants are personified on this show? Because I definitely feel like, specifically the way that his confessionals seem structured, and you can tell the way he's delivering it seems very coached by the diary room. It seems like all he's there to talk about is to give quips and talk about how much Brent is doing a very nice impression of Johnny, where he's can only talk with both of his hands at the same time with his eyes bugged out. I don't know, Brent, do you feel like the portrayal of Johnny specifically in the diary room is completely different from the way he is on the feeds and in the house in general?
Well, I get the fact that, again, this goes back to the fact that it's a television show. I get the fact that they're trying to make good TV. Johnny was cast on the show. I mean, we saw his intro package and him praying at the altar of Big Brother, for heaven's sake. So I get that. I just wish that the gay contestant didn't always have to be a flaming queen. And if they're not a flaming queen, then they're in the closet. There's two types, and that's all that reality TV can seem to give us especially on Big Brother Canada and Big Brother in general.
So, Taryn, it seems like Johnny has become the big target because he's seen as a threat. And again, I wouldn't say don't reveal too much of the live feeds here, but how much of him being considered a threat is based on that one veto win? Because that's the only competition he's really won, right?
It's the only one he's won, but he performed pretty well in a couple others. He's always been on the Chop Shop's radar. He was the original, or one of the original targets in the first week when Bobby was HOH. So he's always been, ready to be cut as soon as they had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about Brittany here, because Brittany got off pretty easy this week, considering that Sarah and Johnny are the nominees. But it seems like, according to the show, Sarah is pretty pissed off at Brittany, specifically on the way that Brittany's been very cool as a cucumber about the fact that her friends have been nominated. Brent, do you feel like from just watching it on the show, do you feel like Brittany is stepping away from allying with Sarah, or do you think that's just Brittany's general demeanor, that she just seemed very cool about Sarah being nominated?
I think both are true. Well, first of all, Sarah shouldn't be surprised. As Kevin showed us later on, Big Brother is not a team sport. One person's going to win, and you've got to do whatever you can to save yourself. Brittany knew that there was a good possibility that she would go up on the block this week. I think Brittany only distanced herself from Sarah in so long as she was in danger. And once she was out of danger from being nominated, she's sort of gone back to being with Sarah. Brittany is not annoyed with Sarah at all. I think, and I do think that Sarah's annoyance with Brittany has lessened as time has gone on, and Sarah has become more comfortable, insofar as you can be comfortable, with the fact that she's nominated, but she knows that Johnny is the big target, not her.
Which is, again, is interesting comparing it to that edit from Sunday's episode, which almost made it look like Sarah was the target, considering that how much they were showing her really react to that nomination. So we get a couple of glimpses here also in the past couple episodes of Bruno telling someone that they want Kevin as the replacement nominee, and that person saying, well, I don't want that, specifically with Zach. And we actually saw a lot of Zach's strategy talk these past couple episodes. Taryn, did that seem disjointed to you, or do you think that Zach is starting to kind of build a strategic mind in the house?
How this is all going down. Are you hearing me?
Yeah. Can you start your intro over again? Sorry,
okay.
You cut out for a second.
Sorry, internet's not working right now. So yeah, Zach is definitely a huge player in how this is all going down between Bruno's group and Sarah's group. And he was working really hard to try and make sure that Kevin wasn't a backdoor option this week, trying to do it as subtly as possible, and he did pretty well. So.
Okay, all right. So Zach is becoming more of both the brains and brawn of Newport / the Bermuda Triangle, it seems. Let's talk Veto here, guys. Let's talk about game, set, match. Now we gotta start off by saying I think we can all agree Zach killing it in the costumes this episode. Can we all agree between the between the preppy outfit and the scrubs? Do you think Brent? Do you think the longer Zach lasts in the competition, the more we're going to get confessionals of the other house guests ogling him without him knowing it?
He is so dreamy, isn't he? Like, I think it was Johnny who I have it written down in my notes. I can't remember what he called him. He said he's what did he call him? McDreamy? It wasn't McDreamy. I have it written down. Like, I was bugging me. But he should have, whatever he said, it wasn't right. It was supposed to be either McDreamy or McSteamy, and he called him something else. So,
maybe he was bringing up a character from Global's hit medical drama Remedy instead. Maybe
right. Oh yeah, that's a great Grey's Anatomy tie.
Oh yeah, with Mick Beamy or something like that. It's a blatant ripoff. Let's talk game set match here. This is so basically. You have to fire what looks like a high-powered air rifle with a tennis ball in it at targets of your opponents, which is sort of like it's like a combination of those Survivor challenges where you have to hit the pots or strike down props from other people to eliminate them. But there's this kind of cool twist where you also get to defend. You have to kind of call your shot, and that person gets to defend themselves by placing a stopper in one of their rackets. Taryn, how goofy was that tennis ball head? I just want to start off by asking that. That is one of the goofiest props I've seen on Big Brother.
That was pretty great, actually.
You liked it? All right, we might be having some problems with Taryn right now. Taryn, try to disconnect and come back on. We'll see if that's been remedied. Brent,
right.
Did you?
Sorry, I was going to talk about the tennis ball. I thought it was pretty practical, actually. I mean, they got something that fit in with the motif of the competition that did the job, and I felt like that was a good job for them.
Part of me wants that to have been like a punishment costume. Like if you finished last, you had to walk around with the tennis ball on your head for the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
They need to use more of the tennis ball head. So it seems from the get-go, everyone is targeting Johnny, including Kevin, including Brittany, and then Johnny eventually acquiesces and lets Sarah take care of him. Do you think this goes along with this whole mentality of go with the house?
Well, of course it does. Nobody wants to stick their neck out when they know that everybody else is targeting who the presumed nominee is. And also, it's a little bit of the Sandra-esque thing. You know, as long as it's not me, they know as long as Johnny doesn't win the veto, he's most likely to go home. So why not? You know, because if Johnny comes down, they don't know who could go up. Bruno's the one who's in charge, not them. So they don't know
Yeah.
who's going to be the replacement nominee. I will say really quickly that if they were going to do this twist this week, this was a terrible competition for them. I mean, there was no chance in hell that Johnny was going to win this competition. This was right off the Survivor show with the, chop the coconuts or whatever, a little bit of a twist in. But even once you got down to one, you couldn't block somebody else from targeting you. So, there was no chance Johnny was ever going to win. I don't know. It just seems like poor planning on Big Brother Canada's part to have this competition for a veto and the twist at the same time. I don't know why they do stuff like this.
Yeah, well, and we'll definitely talk about that in a bit. But we see Bruno is able to use his world-class gaming skills to kind of summarily take out the competition. Though it's correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Bruno a world-class gamer in some sort of medieval game? I don't know how much shooting is involved in that game.
I'm not sure, unless he was playing like, I don't know, a Top Gun in the arcade or something like that. I can't imagine really that much. Yeah, exactly. I don't think there was really that much overlap here.
Yeah, though I gotta say I loved Bobby. We haven't seen like too much personality out of, I'll admit, but I did love his like sniper take on the whole game, where he's on the ground on his stomach and trying to aim the rifle, and his whole idea about I'm gonna exhale as I shoot like a hunter. I think it was fun to see that out of him, but I feel like that was the fun of it was kind of balanced by the fact that everyone was just teaming up and taking out poor Johnny. And as much as they built up the whole Johnny-Kevin thing, I think Johnny was legitimately crushed when Kevin took him out. And it looks like we might have Taryn back. Taryn, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yay.
So we're just talking about Johnny summarily being defeated during the veto competition. So Taryn, when you heard Kevin say I'm gonna do something nobody will expect, do you expect him to take out Johnny? I sort of expected him to start shooting at his own targets.
Well, I did expect him to go after Johnny, mostly because I knew it was him. Because there's not really another move you can make. You don't try and help Johnny in that competition because there's no way Johnny's going to win in that competition.
Yeah, very, very true. So Johnny's out first, then Sarah, then it sort of just becomes Bruno literally gunning these people down, and he takes the veto pretty handily. And we get for the next couple of minutes, we get Johnny just being heartbroken over Kevin betraying him. Taryn, do you think this was an overreaction on Johnny's part, or do you think their friendship was that solid that Johnny had a right to be angry?
I don't want to say it's an overreaction. He had every right to feel hurt. He only expressed it really in the diary room, and I think it's fine for him to feel that way. It is a game, and he should know that. And I think they kind of over dramatized it a little on the show. He had that initial response of being hurt, and then afterward he kind of talked with Kevin and said he understood. He might be lying on the feeds, but it didn't seem like it was as big of a deal as they were making it out to be.
All right, let's talk the task here, guys. And in an episode that was jam-packed with stuff, I wouldn't expect us to see a task, but this is our always fun sponsored task from the network show, and this one is the medical drama Remedy, and it involves Sarah having to pretend to collapse and everyone kind of figuring out what happened. But Brent, I have to admit, these clues were pretty bogus, right?
Well, yeah, but they want them to succeed. They want them to have the party. They want them to get the alcohol. It was, and to be fair, I think they knew that they were going to put this in at the end, towards the end of the show, and they didn't have a lot of time, so I don't think the clues could be that hard. And we, even though that the egg clue was pretty straightforward, they had to figure out that there was another key, then go look for the other key. That took them a little while, and then the initial finding of the envelope in her things. They were tearing up a lot of stuff trying to get it. Like I said, it goes back to it's like idols on Survivor. You want this to be completed.
Mm-hmm. Taryn, do you think one of the reasons why Sarah was chosen was because she's such a messy person and it would take them a long time to look through all her stuff?
But they told them to go straight to the stuff. So it was like,
Yeah, and what's his name? Enrico Valentini or something like that. He played the dad on Veronica Mars.
yeah,
Plays Dr. Alan Connor. And he said like, "Oh, Sarah is sick. You have to go find it. By the way, here's your first hint. You should probably check her stuff." Like it was that like complete like no hint whatsoever.
I think you're being too hard on them. I mean, it's you know, I mean, like if they had the producers are thinking like, oh, if we don't tell them that it's the stuff, then they're gonna tear up the whole dang house. So like they want.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. They would have to
tell them where it is, and then they'll get their task done. It was good TV. I liked it.
The one thing I was scared of was the EpiPen. I don't know if you guys were, because I was afraid, I don't know why I believe this, but I was afraid that the EpiPen was real. So when they're like, "Oh great, the EpiPen, let's stab her with it," I'm like, you do not do that, because that is a rush of adrenaline that may cause her heart to like go through palpitations. Though I guess that would have been good TV. But they treated it. Yeah,
that would have been great TV.
It's reminiscent of Big Brother 9. Did you also like when Sarah almost actually caused a real medical disaster by falling down the stairs?
I was gonna say it would have worked out perfectly, you know.
Right.
She falls down the stairs and then says, "Hey, there are clues, I think."
Exactly. She's that she would have been caught mid-clue. So yeah, as we said, they win. They get to watch an episode of Remedy and hang out. I'll just talking a little bit more about the episode here. Bruno's birthday. He gets a nice card from his family, and they spell out HBDBI in pillows, almost like an SOS message. And here we have the veto that was mentioned at the beginning. Do you guys have anything else you want to bring up from the episodes, or we'll jump into a couple questions before we jump into spoiler territory? But do you guys have any other points you want to bring up specifically on the show themselves?
Just really quickly about Bruno, the fact that, you know, I really feel like he's doing his game a disservice by, you know, that whole Chariots of Fire montage at the beginning where he's winning and going like, "Oh my God, I want to see my family," and he's talking about his family. I know his family means a lot to him, but by doing that, he's only reminding the other house guests that there's no way that they can take him to the end. I mean, he's a family man, he's got kids, he's a likable guy. I feel like that's not doing his game any favors, so I really wish he wouldn't say that and just put it out there so much. You know, it's just a reminder to everybody else of how big of a threat he is to win the game.
Mm-hmm. Taryn, do you believe that? Do you think that people are, and again, not too much into feed stuff, but do you think people are starting to talk now about how Bruno has a story that could win him the votes in the end?
Well, one of Jordan's favorite things to bring up about Bruno is that he has kids, so clearly they must get him out before the jury so he can go home to his kids and doesn't have to sit in the jury house.
Oh,
right.
I
wanted to slap him when he said that. Yeah.
That is cruel. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we have a couple questions about the show specifically, and then we'll jump into spoiler territory. Here's a question from Austin Thind. How far can Zach keep this up? He's playing the best game hands down, but when will both alliances realize he's playing both sides, and will he be targeted for it? It's a good question because we really got a lot of talk these past couple episodes about how Newport's in the middle, and they're rocking it. They're having a great time. Taryn, again, not to jump too much into spoiler territory, do you think people are not very cognizant of Newport? Again, basically what we saw on the show.
You know, Zach and Jordan, even from what we've seen on the show, they spend a lot of time together. So I think it's only a matter of time before people start to realize that these two are really close, and you know they're in good with everyone. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and especially, you know, I think the fact that they let Greg go last week, Greg was such a polarizing figure that, you know, he would keep both sides, you know, opposing each other as opposed to communicating. And with Bruno's somebody that everybody likes and everybody feels comfortable talking to, so it's much more likely that they're going to get exposed now, I think.
Mm-hmm. Brent, do you agree with Taryn? Do you think that now that the sides are kind of starting to break down, Zach will kind of be forced into the open?
I think he'll have to pick a side eventually. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to keep this middle game up much longer. I think Jordan, to his credit, is aware of that, and I totally co-sign what Taryn said about the fact that Zach was in a better position in the game as long as Greg was in the game. And now that Greg's gone, Bruno is a likable, approachable guy. it's not going to be long before the two sides of the house start to communicate and realize that it's like Survivor when Mike realizes that, this whole clash between me and Joe is not helping anybody besides everybody else. I mean, it's helping everybody else, but it's not helping me and Joe. It's like these two sides of the house are going to realize that our feud with each other is only helping the people in the middle, and we know who the people in the middle are, and we know who's in good with each other. And that's
all right, let's jump to a question here from South Newton. You know what? This seems like a spoiler-esque question, so let me just set off the alarm now. We'll jump into actual live feed territory here. I'll make the hopefully that was good enough. So if you don't want to be spoiled about what happens on the live feeds and what happened with the veto, get out now while the getting's good. Now that everyone's gone, let's just talk about the fact before we dive back into questions. Bruno didn't use the veto. He did not did not use the double veto. Taryn, how would we consider this twist failed then? And is this one of the biggest failed twists that BB Canada has done?
I think so. I saw a lot of people who had issues with this twist between the way they worded it, the way that it ended up happening, and I think even this cliffhanger seems really strange given the fact that he doesn't use it. It's going to be really anticlimactic when it comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mike, do you know what we're talking about with the way they worded this twist? Do you understand?
Well, I remember. So from what I remember hearing you guys talk about, from what I remember, the way they initially worded it was that there'd be 2 veto competitions or like 2 chances to save the nominees, and that's what double veto was defined. Or maybe
the problem was the way they worded it and what they had before it. They were talking about the forced veto. Elrissa said on the show that there was a forced veto. You could either vote for the forced veto, or you could vote for the double veto, where the HOH has to So it sounded like the double veto was a double forced veto, and that's what people who I saw on Twitter thought they were voting for. They thought whoever got if it was a double veto, that whoever used it would be forced to use it, and the HOH would have to replace both nominees, which is sort of true. But when you're talking about the forced veto right before it sounds like it's either one forced veto or a double forced veto, not a double, maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't veto.
So, because this twist landed so sloppily, Taryn, do you think it's gonna be a while before we see the Twistos twist choose one or the other, or do you think they're gonna say like, well, we're just gonna go back to the drawing board and try it again in a couple weeks?
I think they're going to keep trying it. I mean, they've continued to. I think there have been twists in the past that have failed to really do the most dramatic thing or the most entertaining thing. Like even just losing a Neil in the first season over Danielle or Suzette.
Yeah.
That was a huge loss, and these twists, they keep coming in, and I'm seeing a lot of backlash this season with just too many twists, too fast, and none of them are working out the ways that the fans want to see them.
I think that's the key point that you're hitting right there. Now, I don't want to disparage the Big Brother audience too much, but part of me feels like one of the reasons why there kind of is a backlash against these twists, I feel like if the double veto was used to help Johnny and Sarah, people might like this twist a little bit better. Just like I think people were a big fan of the Canada's the HOH week last season because it got Andrew and Sabrina put up. I don't know, Brent. Do you think there's a certain correlation between a twist working and the people that Canada doesn't like leaving as a result?
Well, it's a letdown because the producers are saying, okay, Canada, here's your chance to influence the vote, to upend the game. But when the producers don't give the contestants time to think about the twist and make appropriate actions based on that after talking with their alliance mates, the twist is always going to end with a thud. I will say this, if Bruno knew ahead of time that he had a double veto in his hands and he could replace both of the nominees, there was a better than 0 chance that he would have used it, as opposed to the way it ended up working now. Because he was thinking about, look, we're in spoiler territory, I'll tell you guys right now. There was a time for about 2 hours, it was the night before the veto or the veto ceremony, or the day before, where Bruno was thinking about backdooring Zach, but he didn't have the votes. If he took Johnny or Sarah off the block, he knew that the other person would go home. If he could replace both nominees, I feel like he might have done that. He is aware of the fact that Zach is playing both sides, that Zach is in the middle, that Zach is not really with the chop shop anymore. He knows that Zach and Jordan are very, very tight. I even tweeted that a few days ago, or retweeted that a few days ago. So if he had time to think about this, he would have used the twist. It's the producers that aren't giving the contestants enough time to make sure they have all their ducks in a row and then use the value of the twist.
So, Taryn, as Brent just brought up, Zach was considered at least a target as a plan by Sarah and Johnny for a little bit. Do you think that if either Sarah or Johnny or Bruno or
Bruno was the one who was
Godfrey
gonna put him up.
or Bobby decide, or like if anyone associated with those groups win HOH next week, will Zach be considered a target, or do you think this was just a momentary thing?
He came really, really close. All it would have taken was Sarah to have Bruno, and I think it would have happened. And he doesn't even know how close he came. So, the current plan is for Zach to try and win HOH, and he's trying to get Bobby to throw it to him. Jordan is trying to get Willow to throw the competition too. They're trying to make sure that they get the power because they know that there's a very real possibility that one of them could get backdoored. And if not them, then they know at least Kevin, and they want to protect Kevin.
All right. I want to segue a little bit to talk about BBTV. Because as I was watching Sunday's episode, Arissa talks about this wasn't necessarily a twist, but just a little extra thing. Apparently, the house guests were given a time slot to, I guess, kind of perform for the live feeders. It seems, and the feeders got to vote on which channel they liked. Is that correct, or am I misconstruing that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Did you guys happen to watch any of the BBTV?
Yeah.
I had to go back and rewind some of it, but yeah, go ahead.
All right, Brent, what was a highlight of BBTV for you?
I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm into this sort of like a cult thing. I liked Sarah like telling everybody's fortune. It was like psychic Sarah. I thought that was really interesting. I also thought that the skills thing, it was just like a Star Search thing that they had at the end, was really, really funny. But the highlight had to be John, when they had to reenact scenes from previous Big Brother Canada, and Bruno got dressed up in the baby costume as John, and then he was called to the diary room, and then when Bruno went into the diary room and then came out, it was John who said, "Wake up, Canada!" Like it was just.
Oh my God!
They went freaking nuts. Yes,
are we gonna assume then that we're gonna see that on Wednesday then? Because that's a pretty big
so.
thing.
Yeah, they have to put their star on the show. I mean, and plus, well, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening on Wednesday. There's a vote, and there's an eviction and an HOH competition. I don't know. Maybe we won't see it.
Well, maybe if they stop spending 10 minutes walking through the hallway dancing and making shout-outs. Taryn, what on the other side? What was a low light for you watching BBTV?
Ooh, there were a few of them. The courtroom drama wasn't the most popular. That was the one that ended up getting canceled.
Yeah, I know, right?
It was Sarah doing a lot of "you guilty," and that got a little old.
Wait, can we talk about Godfrey as Arissa? Did you love that, Taryn? He had the bed sheet as the one strap dress and with the hair up. Oh, it was glorious. I loved it.
Yeah, that
was pretty great.
That's fantastic. So correct me if I'm wrong then. So that when you mean that got canceled, did you mean that facetiously, or did you mean that like Big Brother let them know that the viewers canceled that program?
They actually let them know, and Sarah was pretty upset about it. She thinks Canada hates her now.
Yeah, well, Sarah has had a poo-poo week, and this is probably the cherry on top of that sundae of having her show canceled.
Yeah.
This actually might work out really good for her, though. I'm serious, because the other contestants know that her show was canceled. They also think maybe Canada doesn't really like Sarah very much, and they're more than likely to keep her in the game. They think she's not going to win any. She might be nominated by Canada if there's a Canada HOH, or she's not going to win any prizes or any advantage if Canada gets to vote on something. So I think this can only help her game. Really.
Brent, do you think one of the reasons BBTV is happening is so production can stop them from doing podcasts all the time?
I think that might be a good possibility. In Jordan's defense, and I have been one of his detractors, I thought he got a little old. I mean, I love Rob. I love Rob as a planet. You know, I do anything for Rob Cesternino. But it got a little old listening to him talking about, you know, Rob and rap and everything like that. I think that, but to his credit, he's not done that as much in the past, you know, week and a half. I think that was kind of like oh my God, I'm on Big Brother, and I really want to let Rob know that I love him and that I am on Big Brother right now and that I'm a supporter of Rob as a podcast. I think that's where that was coming from. The fact that he's in the game right now and he's playing a good game, I feel like he's not doing that as much. Yeah.
So no more Nature Box advertisements?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't heard anything like that lately.
Twistos has picketed Big Brother Canada, saying no more Nature Box. We're the only food stuff vendors here. So, Taryn, is it pretty much a slam dunk that Johnny's going to go home now?
Yeah, pretty much. He's been making a valiant effort. Him and Sarah talked about, with Gummy Bears, Sarah mapped out the alliances, including the Diaper Alliance, and she said, you know, in order for us to succeed, we need to flip to the Bruno side or play the middle. And he explained all of this to Zach, and he's explained it to Kevin, saying, listen, if you keep Sarah in here, she's going to go with Brittany and flip to the other side. I guarantee this will happen. Whereas I can join you guys, I can be a sixth member, I can, you know, work for you. And the response has been, you know, well, Sarah's not going to win anything anyway. We don't think she's going to do much. You know, Johnny, you got to go.
So, Brent, are we looking at a unanimous vote once again?
Yep, looks like it. I don't think anybody's going to vote against Sarah. I think they all want Johnny out. For some reason, Jordan really has Jordan really wants Johnny out. I don't really know why. I think it behooves him to keep somebody like Johnny in the game. I think it behooves him to get somebody like Sarah out. But I don't know. I will say this: Jordan is aware of the fact that that Newport can't ride the middle much longer. Jordan has talked on the feeds about how they're going to have to pick a side. Zach wants to continue to slide in the middle. Jordan has said, you know, look, we're going to get exposed. We have to pick a side soon, and if we don't, we're probably going to be backdoored. And he's right. He's right.
Yeah. So, but Jordan wasn't aware of this plan to backdoor Zach, right?
No.
He just sort of felt it out.
But his spidey sense is up. I think he realizes that they've gone. You can only. My dad always used to say, you can only slide so far on barbed wire before you're going to get stuck, and that's what's happening here. I think Jordan realizes that if he continues to play the middle, that eventually the two sides of the house are going to come together. And I think that Johnny getting in his ear about that might even light even more of a fire underneath. And just to be clear, Zach and Jordan both really want to win HOH this coming Wednesday.
So
which is not something that's been happening in the past. Yeah,
that's very true. So we just spoke of the Diaper Alliance. Let's segue here into a question from South Newton 1. JP wants to go to the end with Kevin/Pilar and Zach/Ashley. That would put him in between two showmances. Is that a good position to be in? Taryn, do you think that if this ends up being the final five, it probably will not, but if for some miracle it does, is Jordan in a good position, or do you think that the two couples would just boot him immediately?
You know, I think right now both Kevin and Zach are more loyal to Jordan than they are to their showmances. Down the line, though, you know, you spend a lot of time with that showmance, and they might start to think, you know, I can win much more easily over Pilar than I can over Jordan or Zach, and so you know their brains might start kicking in. But right now, I think he's good, and I think he would put a pin in it before it got to that point if he thought that they would be more loyal to the showmances.
Right.
Okay.
I want to say really quickly that I think Jordan is. I got to give him my "you in danger, girl" if you continue to take Peely this far into the game, because if you end up on the block next to her, you're going to be evicted. I don't care who you are. No one's ever going to call Peely's number over you. So I think he needs to get her out. He needs to. It's like Frankie with Victoria last year. He knew people kept saying, well, we can get her out any time. Well, that's true, but if you don't get her out, she's eventually going to go to the inn and take up one of those spots. And if you're ever on the block next to her, you're going to go out of the game.
So while Scott St. Pierre is searching for another question to throw up here, I want to talk about the competition a little bit to get back into the house, which I'm presuming we'll see at least in some part, on Wednesday. So now we pretty much have our competitors rounded out, right? We have Risha, we have Cindy with an S, we have Neha, we have Greg, and we have Johnny. Just on paper, no matter if we assume that the competition is at least somewhat skill-based and maybe even a little physical, Brent, do you have an odds-on favorite to come back into the house?
Well, my brain is telling me Johnny will come back into the house, but my heart wants Neha to come back into the house. I pray that there is some Canada vote thing that goes with this challenge because Neha would win it in a heartbeat.
Taryn, what about you?
You know, I think it's really going to be between Johnny, Cindy, and Neha, especially if it's something physical. I can't see what it would be if it was mental. They can't really do a quiz, you know, when they haven't all been in the house. So,
Right.
you know, but honestly, it's probably going to have a lot to do with luck. So, you know,
Yeah.
you can never tell.
God, Greg could come back into the house. Risha
Yeah.
could come back into the
Yeah.
house. Oh my gosh.
Taryn, if
Do a vote.
of the 5 coming back, who stands the best chance of surviving that first week? Something tells me that somebody like Johnny, or maybe even Neha, is going to get the boot almost immediately once they go back into the house. Is there anyone that you think will actually stand a good chance of going pretty far into the game if they come back?
You know, Risha actually might be able to, you know, in the same sort of way that Godfrey's kind of skating by. She might not have any close relationships, but nobody's probably going to see her as a threat. Nobody's going to think that they need to take her out immediately. So she'll probably skate by for a while if she makes it back in.
What do you think, Brent?
I co-sign that. I think that Risha would probably have the best chance of surviving week 1. You know, as long as it's not Greg, and probably not Risha, I'd be happy. I really don't want to see Johnny come back to the house. I don't feel like that's going to change the dynamic. I mean, Yalda just voted him out. It's like that. I can't remember what it was. Big Brother.
It was Crazy James. Yeah.
Yeah. I really want Neha to come back in. Although I don't know that Neha coming back in is really beneficial for Sarah, and I really like Sarah. So I mean, it's a number for her, and it's a target in front of her. But I think that would hurt Sarah's. The ultimate solution to Sarah's game, which is to join with the other side of the house and pick off these people in the middle who are right in the middle. And if Neha comes back in, or even Cindy comes back in, I feel like, or Johnny, I feel like that will just reignite the feud between the two sides of the house, and Jordan and Zach and everybody who their showmances can continue to ride the middle.
So let's take a question here from Cole A. This sort of concerns the previous episode, but we can talk a little bit about Kevin in the house, since we haven't actually talked too much about Kevin this podcast. Did anyone else think that Kevin had a Frankie Grande-esque turn in his edit this last episode? I feel like the editors were showing him in a pretty negative light, talking about how he has to cut Johnny and that he doesn't care that much about. Then it gets cut off, but I think we get the point here. So I didn't mention this when we were talking about the show, but there was that scene of Kevin and Johnny in the hot tub, and there was this sort of like Godfather-esque string orchestral arrangement behind some sort of Vivaldi arrangement or something like that, where Kevin has to lie to Johnny's face to say that he has the votes. Taryn, what has become of the Kevin-Johnny relationship since the veto hasn't been used and it's become a done deal that Johnny's going home?
Well, as I sort of mentioned before, you know, it was Johnny was pissed about it immediately following the veto competition, but you know, a day after that, you know, they had a talk, and he seems fine with it now. He says he understands. They're very cordial. They've been having conversations. Just today, they were having a long conversation. It doesn't seem like it's nearly as big of a deal as the show made it out to be.
Right.
And this sort of ties into the next question from Zachary Zarnek-Klein. Will Kevin regret turning on Johnny? Will this be his biggest mistake? Brent, what do you think? Do you think that if Kevin gets eliminated from the game, I don't know, beginning mid-jury, and he looks back on his game, do you think he'll point at getting rid of Johnny as the one moment where his game went to hell?
No, I think Kevin's playing a great game right now. I think getting rid of Johnny is good for Kevin. That doesn't put him in an obvious, a Frankie-Zach kind of pair. He has a number in Peely. He's in the Diaper Alliance. He's in the he's just in the Diaper Alliance. But I like where
what
Kevin
about the Fortress, bro? The Fortress.
That's kind of it's an alliance within an alliance. So yeah, I know my Mr. Wilson thing right there. Yeah, that I hated. Right. I like where Kevin is right now. I like the fact that he sold Johnny out. There was no way to save him, and I like the fact that he met it head on rather than kind of slinking away and just going after somebody in the veto competition like Sarah. Yeah.
All right, so a question from Mark Serbation says, we were getting a lot of Pilar and Ashley are floaters in the edit. Do you think the producers want Canada to nominate them if Canada gets HOH? So I guess I'll answer this question in twofold. Taryn, how do you think that the edit between Pilar and Ashley of like we're kind of playing under the radar, but we want to kind of get rid of our guys later on. Is that true to their edit in the house? Are they bigger presences in the house than they are on the show?
Peely isn't, to be frank. But I think Ashley actually is. You know, she's having talks with Jordan and Zach and Kevin about the diaper alliance, about when they need to strike, what they need to do. She's the one telling Peely what to do as far as, you know, who to talk to, who to trust. If she's coming across as, you know, this kind of floaty person who's not really doing anything, that's not very fair to her, I think.
Mm-hmm. So is it safe to say, Brent, that Ashley is Peely's closest female ally in the house?
Yes, I would say that. I would also say that the other women in the house are resenting the fact that Ashley and Peely are essentially protected by their showmances, and that may cause some animosity. Jordan is convinced that the four of them will never work together, and I don't think that that's true. I think he's sort of underestimating that. Right now, I don't think they'll work together, but I think in a couple weeks they might actually take a look and say, you know, hey, it's better to work with you two girls rather than these three guys.
All right, let's just take a couple more questions here, and then we'll start to wrap up. So Reality Comp Nerd says, basically, I think there's a little bit of a mess up in the question, but basically, Reality Comp Nerd is asking us, you know, does the poor description of the twist make it a big failure? And I kind of want to spin this out a little bit just to a brief discussion here of, do you think... I think it's safe to say that people aren't enjoying this season as much as the previous two. Do you think that the fact that people aren't enjoying it as much lies purely in the fact that there are a bunch of twists happening? People would argue an oversaturation of twists. Brent, do you think that's the case?
I think two things come into play. One, the twists I think are not really helping, especially when they land with a thud. I think the other issue is that, as you pointed out before, we always campaign for the superfans to get in the house. I don't know that it's great TV. I really don't. You know, Jordan is a great guy. He's a great player. May ultimately win this game, and I would love to shake his hand. But I don't love watching him on my TV screen. I'm just being really honest. I think that kind of goes with the other super fans in the house. Willow, have we even brought her name up? What is she doing?
Yeah.
Is she even on the show except doing this?
The only thing we saw her do is seize on the ground. That's the most impact she's had on the TV show in a month.
Like I said, you need diverse characters. You need conflict in order to create good television. Superfans know to stay out of things like that. I don't think that they make good TV, and I understand why production doesn't cast them more.
All right, one last question here from Cuddly Caucasian. Why was Brittany, who claimed to want to save Sarah, going after random people during the competition? Taryn, did Brittany talk a little bit about this on the feeds, maybe about why she decided to just sort of target random people in the competition rather than support Sarah or even Johnny?
Not really. I think she was just trying to go after anyone but Sarah. She definitely, from what it seemed like, it didn't seem like she was playing to win, even though that's what she was saying in the DR. Going after Kevin before Bobby or Bruno didn't really make sense to me. It protects her from being put on the block, but
Right.
That's not what she was saying in the DR. So.
One last quick question about Brittany in general, Taryn. What does Brittany's position look like in the house right now? Because on the show we always talk about her and Sarah, and she's with Johnny, but it seems like she slid by pretty easily this week. Has Brittany kind of subsided from becoming this big presence in the house last week successfully?
She did actually, and sort of like I brought up before on the previous podcast, it was almost against her best efforts. She wasn't seen as the person who put the plan into motion that got Greg out of the house. And she has a really good relationship with Bruno. So she's in a position right now where she can easily follow Sarah to kind of flip-flop in between Bruno, Bobby, Godfrey, and Zach, Jordan, Kevin. So, you know, her and Sarah are actually the new people who are in the middle at this point. So she's in a great spot.
Right. I just want to say, Mike, really quickly that the reason that Brittany wasn't put up, I don't know if this is really shown, but Bruno and Brittany have an understanding. I don't know if it's an agreement, but they're not going to nominate each other. Brittany said, I wouldn't put you up on the block. Bruno says, I'm not going to put you up on the block. So they have an understanding going forward that they're at least going to protect each other if they win HOH. I do think that Brittany, it's amazing to me that neither Sarah or Johnny has really outed the fact that Brittany, that whole thing with Greg was her plan last week. Every single part of it. I don't know how that hasn't been outed yet, especially considering that Johnny's the one who's probably going to go home. I don't know how he didn't out that before the veto ceremony. Did he try, Taryn? Did I miss it?
He did try. He went to Bruno. He said, listen, I had nothing to do with it. I had no idea what was going on. Bruno doesn't believe a word of it, though.
Well, he's sort of lying, though. He did have an idea of what was going on. He knew. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I did see that part. He did know what was going on. So he's lying about that, and Bruno's probably sniffing that out. He's sort of a half lie.
So we're starting to see Brittany kind of rise to a position of power here. Queen Bee might have to take off another head or two here. We're going to start wrapping things up here. Follow these guys on Twitter. They're fantastic. Thanks for coming on with me, guys. I think we had a nice little Bermuda Triangle-esque podcast going on here on Tuesday night. You can follow Taryn at Armstrong Taryn on Twitter. You can follow Brent at Brent Wolgamott. His last name is spelled Wolgamott. And as always, you can follow me at a Mike Bloom type on Twitter. But the week of Rob Has a Podcast has only just begun. We recently put up this week's edition of The Spice an Hour, an Amazing Race exit interview. Coming up tomorrow night after the episode of Survivor, Rob will actually be speaking at New Media Expo during the episode. So Josh Wigler will be stepping in for Rob to recap Survivor Know-It-Alls with Stephen Fishback right after the episode, right here, 9:15 p.m. Eastern, 6:15 p.m. Pacific here on Rob Has a Podcast. The next day is going to be Rob's big Survivor Day. He'll be back on the podcast. He'll talk to the next person eliminated. He'll be doing his big recap podcast with Jonathan Penner. And this weekend, he'll be doing the Survivor voicemails with the one and only Angie Kantz. And, of course, don't forget about the Amazing Race recap Friday night. And, of course, we're making another stop here on Big Brother Canada on Friday night as well. Rob will be back with some new live feed correspondence to talk about. We'll see someone go. Might be Johnny. We'll see someone come back. Might be Johnny again. We might see John come back into the house. Who knows? It's going to be a crazy episode. Guys, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you all for listening as well. This has been a lot of fun to fill in for the week. To finish up, can this Bermuda Triangle come up with a hashtag to use for people who have made it this far?
I'm terrible at hashtags. Somebody else take this.
How about when we're talking about our vault production problems? Maybe we'll use hashtag too many drawers. Which is an Adult Swim special that I hope they never make. So hashtag too many drawers if you made it this far. Brent, Taryn, again, thank you guys. Great job as always, and thank you all for listening or watching right now. And we will see you guys back tomorrow for Survivor Know-It-Alls and for Big Brother Canada on Friday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.